So we're only 3 months into our podcast and the mainstream media is already stealing our ideas. This week on the pod, we respond to an athletic piece about college football team valuations, which we talked about 3 weeks ago in this very space. Could it ever happen? I wouldn't rule it out, especially with who's running college sports these days.
It could. Something like this could happen. And if anyone out there is crazy to do something like this, it's people that run college sports teams.
After seeing a jaw-dropping piece about media consumption, we'll take a shot at ESPN and their upcoming rights deals and how they've lost a ton of leverage in those negotiations. I think ESPN is really screwed. Really screwed. And I could be completely mistaken, but I just think they're going to have to commit so much money. They can only spend so much money. And let's keep the good times rolling in college sports insanity. I'm up to my ears, and I'm turning my ire towards one of the more mind-boggling hires we've ever seen. Let's check in with this dude in a month, because if you look on the website on the sports he's going to be doing, football, men's basketball, baseball, men's and women's golf.
Jesus.
Listen, man, he's going to want to be a women's soccer coach after he gets through the next 12 months, 10 months, because he's going to be drowning. This is the true story of two washed-up sports guys who chased the dream, private flights, championship rings, running sideline to sideline on per diem and adrenaline.
We gave our 20s and our 30s to the industry, pulled off miracles that were never in the job description. In return, low pay, long hours, and we still got cut from the team.
This is about what really happens behind the badge. The burnout, the bad bosses, the dream job that didn't love you back, but also the lifelong friendships, the chaos, the holy shit stories you couldn't make up. And somehow, despite everything, you'd still do parts of it all over again.
This is one for the ones who lived it, loved it, hated it, and still kind of miss it. For everyone who's ever asked, how in the hell did we survive that? We're two former sports insiders with more than 40 years of experience and more than enough scars to make fun of it all.
And just enough trauma to start a podcast instead of going to therapy.
I'm Brandon Barca.
And I'm Andy Boggs.
And this is No Longer Credentialed. We once had access, now we have opinions.
So we're only 3 months into our podcast and the mainstream media is already stealing our ideas. Not making this up. In a recent piece in The Athletic written by Matt Baker, he attempts to assign actual monetary values to college football programs. He lays out how he did it in the article, which we'll list in our show notes, but the numbers were intriguing. And Barca, they're also quite spectacular.
We're having just a little fun, Matthew Baker. We don't really think you stole our idea, but it is interesting timing.
It is.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the methodology of this article. It was a fun piece, and the methodology, even they explain on their end, that it's not fully baked, right? They don't have all the numbers, the business numbers from athletic departments. And I thought it was kind of interesting how they try to combine imperfect math with common sense to price these college programs like they were professional sports. And we talked about it a little bit, right? Like at some point, could this happen? I mean, everything with the House settlement right now and $20 million, and we've got some schools like, gosh, I can't remember, maybe Texas Tech that might be spending close to $50 million on their roster this year. And everybody's looking for ways to generate revenue. That's how this originally came up. And while this maybe isn't practical for the moment, something like this could happen. And if anyone out there is crazy to do something like this, it's people that run college sports teams. Yeah. So let's talk about the methodology. First, they kind of said this was just a fun exercise. Really, this means, hey, we just want to get some clicks, maybe a couple subscriptions. They used real-life pro transactions to gauge purchase prices relative to a team's revenue over the past 3 available years of data. They say, do not take the numbers to the bank literally because athletic departments isolate and report football revenue differently. Most revenue figures for public schools came from the NCAA financial reports. They also used figures submitted by the U.S. Department of Education. What a team sells for is not the same as a team's actual value, as we know. Buyers routinely pay a premium because there are only so many opportunities to own a sports team. We've seen this happen recently. What do we say? The Celtics, some other franchises have gone for over $6 billion. In the NBA, there's only 32 people that own teams. And so, that really does drive the price up, a lot of times even more so than maybe what the value of it is. They use the NFL and NBA to sort of predict kind of what the SEC and Big Ten schools would do if they were out on the open market, while they use the MLB and NHL as rough benchmarks in the ACC and Big 12. They treated teams like Notre Dame more like the Lakers and Boston College more like the Kansas City Royals. They did note that this exercise did not address the new annual expense from the House settlement of $20.5 million. They've probably been working on this study for, let's say, maybe 12 years, you think?
Some of the numbers are kind of mind-blowing, although I think, honestly, man, I think they may be a little bit low. So, number one.
Go over the list.
You want to do the top 10? Should we just do the top 10?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so number one is Texas, $2.38 billion. That's with a B. Their annual football revenue is $183 million. But think about it, though, for a second, man. You're the chancellor of, we've talked about this, but you're the chancellor of Texas. You see a $2.38 billion valuation of your team, your football team. You got to be thinking, right? Like, that's got to, switch off a lot of red lights in your head. Like
dollar signs in my eyeballs, like I'm a Looney Tune cartoon.
Unbelievable. Okay, number two, Georgia, $1.92 billion.
Go Dogs.
Ohio State, $1.9 billion. Notre Dame, $1.85. Michigan, $1.83. Alabama, $1.74. Oklahoma, $1.49. USC, 1.4, Tennessee, 1.37, and LSU rounds out the top 10 at 1.23. And then it's Penn State, Florida, and Auburn, which are not that much lower than LSU. Barca, those are some big, big numbers, although, when you have people competing, to own one of these one of these teams, I got to think that number could balloon.
For sure. Like I said, we've seen it with the Celtics. And the list there, they have 6 SEC teams out of the top 10. They've got 3 Big Ten teams, and then obviously Notre Dame in the top 10. So obviously, as we are all seeing how these conferences are shaping up and eventually becoming super conferences or their own super conferences, that's how the model and the scale worked out. Obviously, they sort of valued less some of these other conferences like the ACC. So it's not a surprise that none of those schools or the Big 12 showed up in this 10. You have to think whatever the valuation is, whatever it comes out at initially to buy at is probably going to be the lowest you can buy it at, right? Yeah. Would that make sense?
Yeah.
Regardless of even if the times right now are murky. So, I'm opening up my checkbook, I've got my gold credit card just sitting there waiting. Yeah. Oh, $2.38 billion? Yep. No problem.
Yeah. Yeah. In Texas too. I mean, there's just money flowing everywhere down at that school. And so, yeah, it's an interesting exercise. It's really kind of fun. If you add all that money up, Barca, think about that. All the money that's would be infused into an economy or infused into the university. I mean, that's just off the top of my head. That looks like it's probably close to $20 million. $20 billion, excuse me, not 20 million, $20 billion.
There's been combos out there of even, I think I read an article from a year or two ago when Jay Williams, who played basketball at Duke and obviously, is on First Take and, is a national media figure, rumored to have wanted to buy a 49% stake in Duke basketball. And so, you could be looking at some of these other types of angles as well. Even if a school's like, we don't want to give you a majority ownership, but we want to give you a pretty significant minority stake into it. And I'm curious, I don't know if you have the full list pulled up or not, but I know you're probably looking a little bit further down the list, Boggs. I know you want to find a bargain, maybe a basement bottom bargain here on the list that you could buy low and sell high, even if there's a risk that maybe one of these schools might not even make it to be a super conference. Maybe they get dumped and left behind and they're dropping down to whatever the next level is. NAIA, FCS, D2, D3.
Yeah.
I'm throwing out some old leagues in there as well. So
Yeah, I don't have the list pulled up. I think a school like maybe the University of Miami. I can't even believe I mentioned the Hurricanes, but
I know. Boggsy is Florida State through and through, and he's sitting there talking about the U.
I mean, Florida State should be on the list too. Like they could be in there as a bargain. That place hasn't been run well in years. Man, you put me on the spot. I'm trying to, North Carolina or Virginia or.
So you're looking mostly ACC. Maybe you're going ACC, maybe some Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, even like I saw some of these Big Ten schools like Wisconsin. Maybe I think they were valued at like $800 million. Arkansas was like $800 million. I mean, Arkansas is kind of a place that may not be. I mean, it's the only show in town, and they're good at everything. They sell a lot of tickets. That'd be somebody to look out for.
So you're looking at somebody that maybe dominates the state outside of Miami.
Yeah. West Virginia is another one.
Dominates an entire state, may not have professional competition or may have just a little bit of professional competition.
Yep.
And isn't located in a massive city like a Miami.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I always kind of look at these brands that travel. Arkansas travels. Virginia Tech travels. West Virginia travels. Tennessee travels. They're in the list. We can go back to our time in the SEC of the schools that traveled. We know which schools Georgia traveled. South Carolina traveled. But there's some schools in the SEC that didn't travel as far as fans. And, people look at, back in the day when they were expanding conferences, we're looking at, what's their market share and what's their television ratings. And I don't know if you're really looking at that these days. I think, to me, I'm looking for brands, and are people attracted to the brands? How attracted are they? And, when you go to places like West Virginia or Tennessee or Virginia Tech, I mean, it's like people live and die in Arkansas. They live and die by what happens at those places. It's all they got. I would be looking at places like that, honestly.
And that's where I think some of the valuations, again, as they pointed out, the number they listed may not match the demand, like you said, when there's going to be competition. But when we go back, and I think we talked in an earlier episode about the valuation of LAFC from the MLS being, what was it, $1.25 billion.
Yep.
Some of these schools on the list, and again, they said they sort of had funny math on some of this, so take it with a grain of salt. But all of these schools are going to be valued more than LAFC and MLS. And so when I look at Auburn and Florida and Penn State at like 11, 12, 13 on the list or so, they're hitting much higher than that number, that low ones for sure.
Yeah. Penn State's lower than LAFC? Yeah, right. In what universe is that? Seriously. There's 110,000 people that go to 7 games a year there. I mean, again, like I'm glad these guys did this story, but I think they're a little bit low. I mean, Give me your thoughts here.
Yeah. Do you think Texas would sell for the most? Do you think that's a no-brainer probably?
I probably would go with Texas. I would move Oklahoma down. I mean, I would move Tennessee up. I'd move USC down. I'd move LSU, Penn State, Florida, and Auburn up. And I'd move USC and Oklahoma out of the top 10.
It's interesting seeing Notre Dame at number 4.
Yeah, I just think because they sell so much merch and
not higher is where I'm.
Oh, you thought they'd be higher? Their stadium's not as big, and
yeah.
Well,
I'm just going from the sense of we grew up with them. Obviously they're on NBC. They're getting that NBC money. They've basically been independent for the most part of at least our lifetimes. And as far as not tied to a conference, and now they're sort of tied to ACC, at least in football games and scheduling and basketball. But they're sitting there at 4. They've got it right from the top 5. I mean, honestly, some of this they probably could have done without even doing the study. I mean, obviously Michigan and Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, Notre Dame. That sounds like a pretty legit top 5. Alabama outside at the 6. That one's sort of interesting.
Why is USC so high?
Well, I mean, obviously they're in LA. They're in a big market. They obviously have a big history. It's a very relevant national brand when it comes to the last 20, 30 years.
But look at the revenue on that list that we have. We have a list that we're looking at. So
Yeah, it's way down. It's way down compared
It's
to
like
everybody
under
else.
$75 million in football revenue. I don't understand how they can be a $1.4 billion valuation in front of Tennessee, LSU, Penn State, Florida, and Auburn. There's no way. Have
And
you been to a
the
game at USC?
Yeah. And the when we go back to the facility arms race, there's no way USC was spending the kind of money that a lot of these SEC teams have spent. And so to see them ahead of a Tennessee or an LSU,
Yeah, no way. No way.
I just don't know it unless,
No way. Now, I will say USC, the Olympics are coming and they're running track at the Coliseum. So they've put in some money at that place. So it's looking good. But again, if they're not good in that city, no one cares. They have the Chargers there now. They have the Rams there now, and basketball starts. You got LeBron and the Clippers. That starts in October. I've seen a football game there. It's incredible. It's a great place to watch a game, but I just don't see them moving the needle like these other places. I mean, granted, yeah, they're in LA, big deal. But if they're in LA and nobody cares, it's like we worked at a school in a big city that nobody cared about, right? I mean, nobody cares about this. Some of these schools, like Northwestern in Chicago, they care about it, but do they really care about it? I mean, they're probably glad they're there, but are most alums in Chicago Northwestern alums? No, they're Illinois alums and Illinois State alums and all that. I don't know. I don't like that. That's the one that I really don't like.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's an interesting one for the top 10, especially at least with the revenue figure they have being somewhat low compared to that top 12 or 13 that we have on our list right now. And in many cases, that number is half of what a lot of these other teams are doing. But you have to think from projected price. I mean, USC by name could be something that's just competitive that people go after. And so who knows? Top 10 list? Don't think so. I agree with you on that one.
It's just a tough market. I mean, look at UCLA right now. Like, they can't draw 35,000 to their games. Like no one cares. The weather's great. Why am I going to go fight traffic to go watch UCLA? Honestly, play Rutgers. I'm not going. I'm not going to watch them. You get more opposing fans than you do home fans at those places. The fans in Wisconsin, they want a trip to LA in November. USC is just doesn't move the needle for me. More than Tennessee? No way. LSU? No way. Cool exercise, though. Real cool.
Yeah. Lots of fun. And next time, put us in the footnotes, reference us a little bit. Thank you, New York Times Athletic.
That's right. Before we get started with this segment, I wanted to clarify a few things. A pre-segment fact check, per se. After this podcast was recorded, it was reported by Andrew Marchand at The Athletic that ESPN and the NFL came to an agreement for ESPN to take over the NFL Network, Red Zone, pretty much anything the NFL produces that is broadcast related, in exchange for the NFL to own a 10% stake of ESPN. So that's big news. Also, when I mentioned television contracts, the SEC negotiated their current 10-year arrangement in 2020 that went into effect in 2024. The Big Ten renegotiated their contract in 2022. I mentioned that the Big Ten is negotiating twice before the SEC is up again, which they did in 2022 and which they have the opportunity to do again in 2030.
Let's hear it, Boggs. I've been waiting all week for this segment.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. So I found an article this week from Nielsen. So they recently released some data about how people consume media, and YouTube leads the pack at 12.8% of total consumption, followed by Disney at 10%, Netflix coming in at 8.3%. And Netflix posted the largest monthly share increase across all media companies this month, adding 0.8 points from May to represent 8.3% of June's TV usage total, and its largest share of the television market since January of 2025. So people are watching Netflix. So just to sum up, YouTube leads, Disney is second, Netflix is third. So Disney was powered by some sports content in June, namely the NBA Finals. And YouTube also received a boost from school-age audiences in June and remained atop the media distributor gauge rankings for a 5th consecutive month. The streamer notched a 6% monthly viewing increase over May and represented 12.8% of TV usage, its largest share of television to date. And with a 2.8-point lead over second-place Disney, this marks YouTube's largest lead among media distributors to date. So I started thinking about sports television rights, because I always do, and I think it's very fascinating. I think it's going to lead to some really interesting decisions by sports leagues moving forward, and decisions that are going to drive up the price of doing business. The NFL will surely opt out of its media arrangement in 2029, and they already have a deal with YouTube. They also just recently made a deal with ESPN. ESPN bought a lot of their content. And so do they go all in with the streamer? The Big Ten is up in 2030. The SEC, cough, cough, has to wait until 2034. But they surely will be keeping an eye on the market. So, Mark, I guess for me, this whole thing is, I think in the beginning when these streamers started, a lot of people assumed they would go all in right away on sports. And it's been a slow burn, Netflix had a live boxing match. Apple got a little baseball package, and then they got MLS. So it's like, and Amazon got Thursday Night Football, and they're going to have Thursday Night NBA. They're going to own Thursdays from August to April or May. I think what's going to happen now, since people are in now, the streamers are in, that people like ESPN are going to be in trouble. Like when the SEC comes up again in 29, and they also have this new over-the-top product that they have to find content for. And so not only I think they're in trouble, but if they want to stay in the game, they're going to have to really, really pay for it.
Which is crazy to hear.
Yes.
It's crazy to hear because we grew up through the generation where ESPN was basically the Roman Empire. I mean, they started in 79, slowly grew on cable channels and networks. And then at some point, between the John Walsh, John Skipper era, they just basically dominated sports coverage on live TV. Just overall, just buying up basically as much live content as they could. And then they sort of came crashing down for a little bit and let go of a lot of good people over the years, and have sort of redefined their model now. Instead of it being all, worldwide leader over everything, they've really turned into more of a talking head network. But to your point, live entertainment and live games is where it's at. That's what draws the most ratings.
Yep.
And now they have competition.
Yes.
This isn't like Fox Sports launching a network to go up against and on cable. It's these billion-dollar streamers, and they have stepped in and put their toes in the water.
Yeah.
They want to see. They wanted a little bit of a taste, like you said. Netflix with the Jake Paul, I think it was Jake Paul, Mike Tyson boxing,
yep.
And MLS now has. Apple now has MLS and Messi, and these places aren't going to just like stop the car and turn back and turn around. They're seeing what these live events generate.
Big numbers.
And there's more competition, and heck, we just saw TNT lose basketball for many reasons back to NBC, and I don't know what's going to happen to ESPN. Are we slowly watching the Roman Empire crumble and fall? Am I being too overdramatic?
Well, let's rewind back to 2014. We were both involved with the launch of the SEC network.
Yep.
What ESPN decided to do was they decided smartly at the time to make the schools develop these studios, and basically they made them, the onus on putting games on became on the university. And so what happened was all of the schools developed these, studios where they could put on live games. Meanwhile, ESPN's cutting talent, they're cutting producers, they're cutting the people who know how to put games on, and they switched that all to the schools. So what they've kind of done is they've kind of buried themselves. Because now, okay, fast forward to 2025. Most of these SEC schools, ACC schools too, they're putting on over 100 events a year that they're doing on campus. And all ESPN is doing is sending them a graphic and hosting it on ESPN Plus or wherever. So moving forward, when their deal is up in 2034, which is stupid why they signed a 10-year deal, dumb. But
go in on that a little bit more. Let's hear it.
Well, like the Big Ten's going to have a deal come up in 2030, so they're going to get to renegotiate twice. So right now, next year, Big Ten schools are going to make 16 of the 18 are going to make $75 million a school. In the SEC, they're going to make 60. So that's a $15 million difference per school. That's just with this deal. In 2030, that number is going to go higher than 75. It's going to be 90 to 100. Heck, ESPN may even get back in 2030. So so not only are you going to be competing against Fox, you got to think Amazon's going to be in and Apple's going to be in for that. So the number is going to go up, up, up. And what they've done with the campuses now is there's no ESPN guidance on running games. They do it all themselves. So why do they need ESPN? They could just post it on Amazon or post it on Apple or host it on YouTube. I think ESPN is really screwed. Really, 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 really screwed. And I could be completely mistaken, but I just think they're going to have to commit so much money. They can only spend so much money. And if I'm the SEC, I'm kind of salivating because they have this new over-the-top product that they have to put content on. They just paid the NFL a lot of money for it. I think they're going to have Red Zone on there and other content. So now the SEC is like, well, we're up in 2034, and we're undervalued right now. Like the Big Ten's making, I would think by 2034, they're going to be making $30 million more a school than that number that ESPN's paying the SEC right now. So I think that's, when I saw that Nielsen story, I'm like, okay, so people are not watching TV. They're watching YouTube. My son watches YouTube. That's all he watches. We try to get him up. We get him off every once in a while, but he goes to YouTube for his content. He's 7. So that's where I'm at right now, Barca. I just think that all this landscape is just going to change so dramatically. And I just don't know where ESPN fits in, unless, again, they're willing to really, really, really pay.
So essentially, ESPN is basically looking at, the biggest piece of the pie out there is anything associated with the NFL.
Correct.
And right now they're like, okay, is there some inventory that we can grab? And so they're trying to be strategic and smart while also knowing that a lot of their investments may end up on other streaming networks here in the next 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've brought this up on other podcasts. I can't remember. But in 2010, they had 1,000 live events. In 2024-25, they had 30,000 events, digital on ESPN Plus and things like that. It's all about quantity over quality, if you ask me. It's just a place for them to host. I mean, they'll host Division II things and smaller conferences and all that. And it's a great service. Like if my son played it, I don't know why the University of Richmond came into my mind, but they did. So if he plays soccer for University of Richmond,
Go Spiders.
It's kind of cool. It would be kind of cool to buy ESPN Plus and watch those games, produced at a pretty decent level. But they've given up all of their know-how on how to make games, how to produce games, how to put them online, how to make content. I mean, these college campuses, they are pros that, you have old producers who traveled around all over the country, work in baseball or work in basketball. And now they see these jobs on college campuses where they get to do the same thing, work in state-of-the-art studios and stay at home and probably make more money. ESPN cut a huge amount of their workforce around production because they saw this coming. It was a cheap way to do things, but it's going to end up biting them in the ass, I think. I think it really is.
You mentioned earlier about YouTube, having a 2.8 lead over second place Disney right now. its largest share of television to date right now, right? Is that correct?
That's right. That's right.
And I don't know. They may be the Scotty Scheffler coming up where they're just going to start running away from the competition. Who knows? Because you have to think, they just acquired, all of these NFL streaming rights last year from who was it, DirecTV,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're already getting some significant pieces of the pie right there. And believe it or not, who is YouTube owned by?
Google.
Google. And guess what they just did here recently in the last few months? Little bit in the news that Justin Connolly, after exiting Disney, he had been at ESPN for a long time. He was one of the top brains behind. Hell, we sat in meetings when SEC Network launched and with ESPN, and he was one of the top guys there. Is heading to YouTube as global head of media and sports.
Ooh.
And guess who's suing them?
Yeah.
Disney is suing them over the execs hired. They filed a breach of contract lawsuit against YouTube and Conley. And it's interesting because now they have in their sort of possession, if you want to say it that way, one of ESPN's biggest and brightest minds through this whole era that ESPN has been the worldwide leader.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he was probably one of the main guys behind their whole production strategy. Hey, instead of us sending a TV truck in to do the Tennessee-Alabama basketball game, let's just have Tennessee do it, and we'll pay them for it, but we won't have to pay as much to send a truck in, So they cut on their production costs, and it was smart. It's a great idea. There's some places in the SEC where they do every show, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, whatever. They do them all. There's some that choose not to do certain ones, and you get paid per game. And the SEC or the ESPN gave up their expertise in putting games on. And Barca, I can go on and on about TV production. I don't know a ton about it, but I know what's good and what's bad. I know the NBA Finals is bad. And the ABC, their coverage of the NBA
horrible
was not good. And
horrible.
Their halftime shows were not good. They had to go pay TNT to bring Inside the NBA in. Their college football coverage is not good.
They had to pay an outside show to come in and do their
Right.
show for next year,
Yep.
basically.
It's just,
And they've done the same thing with Pat McAfee,
Right.
basically taking his show and saying, hey, you can just run it on that network, on their network. That is really becoming what their strategy is
Yeah.
right now, which is
Yeah.
extremely fascinating.
well, yeah, it's fascinating, but I think it's going to bite them in the ass. I just don't know, and this is me just railing on about ESPN. I just don't know how much they care about the fan. They care about the egos there. They care about the talent. But I don't know how much they care about the people who digest their product. It shows in how they produce their games, what they spend their money on. And I don't think it's going to be good for them. I really don't. I think the SEC could do everything themselves. Like Larry Scott you worked in the Pac-12. He got shit on for doing the Pac-12 network. It was probably not done the right way. But the concept of it is...
That's a nice way to say it.
Right. But the concept of it is interesting because he basically said, you know what? We're going to do it all ourselves. We're going to produce it all. We're going to keep all the revenue. We're going to sell it. We're going to do all that. But he didn't think about the distribution of it. He did. That's what Justin Connolly and the SEC worked together on for years, right? I mean, that's probably why it didn't launch till 2014. They're working on how am I going to get Comcast to carry it? How am I going to get DirecTV to carry it? Because back then, that's the way people watched. But it's not like that anymore, And so here's ESPN out here, and in 2034, they're going to have to pay up for college football in the SEC or whatever college football looks like. But they're not competing against just Fox and NBC. It's like Jeff Bezos and Amazon or Apple or, whoever, Netflix. I mean, dude, it is going to be a huge, huge expense for them. It's almost they have to do it, though. They have to do it because they have this new product that they have to have content on. They have to do it.
Things are going to start changing. I mean, I can go back to when I was a kid and those big, grand Walmart superstores came into town, and all the mom and pop groceries and everything else went out of business. Eventually, the Kmarts and Sears and all of those went out of business. And,
And here we are 20 or 30 years later, and guess what happens? Amazon comes to town, and they're the big dog now.
Yeah.
And, in a way, it's somewhat all cyclical, right?
It is.
Like ESPN has had its run as the worldwide leader, but the trajectory looks like it's going somewhat down. And I'm sure they are thinking behind the scenes that they want to do anything possible to stay relevant.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I can see us looking at the ESPN doc here. I'm looking for someone will buy out 30 for 30 like 30 years from now.
Yeah.
It'll be like ESPN, the true story behind the rise and the fall. And I'm being extremely over dramatic right now, but the days are long gone of them dominating everything. They don't have a pulse on what their viewer wants.
No.
Their strategy right now, outside of live entertainment, is buy 2 or 3 or 4 of the biggest personalities, give the Stephen A. Smiths $100 million, bring over Pat McAfee, which, in some sense, I get it.
Yeah.
But then they're basically running those talent into the ground by basically feeding us 24/7 on every single show. I mean, they're even somewhat rumoring that Stephen A. Smith might be a part of NFL coverage
Of course.
this fall. And it's not what the people want to see. And obviously they incorporated McAfee into ESPN Game Day on Saturdays mornings, probably to give it a little bit of jolt. And honestly, if I'm taking that format, if I'm bringing in McAfee, honestly, I'm probably doing more of a McAfee format altogether rather than him being sort of a younger, newer version of not exactly Lee Corso, but someone that's animated and, gets the crowds going on campus and can relate with the viewers. At least he could more so. But, if you think back to Corso's days, he was kind of the entertainment around it all. And I don't know. I think the way they look at themselves in the mirror isn't probably
it's not correct. It's not right.
They're not. Yeah.
It's not an honest assessment of where they are. And Justin Connolly's move to YouTube, they're looking at this the same way that we're looking. They're smart, way smarter than us. He's thinking the same thing. Hey, these schools, they're doing all this content on their own. Like, they don't need ESPN. YouTube could outsource a graphics company to do graphics for their television broadcast in a day, And it's just not that kind. It's not 2005 anymore. And people are not consuming their content strictly over cable TV. And I think they got to be sweating, dude. I'd be sweating. There's just a lot of money coming down the pike for these companies. And they're going to have to make some decisions. Man, it's fun to watch. I love watching it kind of, unfurl in front of our eyes. And
this is one of your favorite topics, isn't it?
It is one of my favorite topics. It's just so intriguing to me how this, and then, you kind of know how the sausage is made a little bit on the production side. Yeah. And so you kind of like put 2 and 2 together. It just came to me that ESPN's in trouble.
Give me one more hit here, because when the SEC signed that lucrative deal, long-term deal with ESPN that I think you said went into what, 2034?
Stupid.
Now, when this first, let's go back. When this first happened, it was a groundbreaking deal.
It was.
And all of the schools were sitting there in the SEC thinking, oh my gosh, the SEC is going to pay us out. I can't remember what it started out with, $20 million to each school. And maybe it went to 40 million or 50 million or whatever it's at now, 60 million, that annual disbursement, and everybody gets that check and gets the cash and everybody's happy. So there was a time period where, like, this is groundbreaking, and a bunch of the other leagues were probably thinking like, well, you look at the Pac-12. I mean, they couldn't strike anything, I think, with like DirecTV or any other distributor.
Couldn't watch them.
And so we saw what happened to that conference, or that played a role in it, obviously. And so, maybe it helped with the rise and the relevance of where they're sitting at the top of the hill right now. But as we're getting on this back end and we're seeing all of this change in the industry, you're thinking like, okay, that deal was great back then. But now I think you meant how much you talked about the Big 10 deal and everything like that is there a little bit of buyer's remorse? I can't remember if Slive or Sankey did that original deal.
Slive did the deal in 2008, and that was a 15-year deal. And then they renegotiated the deal in 2024 when ESPN bought all they bought everything. CBS was getting a sweetheart deal for the Saturday game of the week, and ESPN came and bought it. And that's what's pushed the numbers up to where they are now. And they're gonna be bigger, but they're not going to be as big as what the Big Ten's getting. I mean, Purdue's going to be making $30 million more than Alabama. Let that sink in for a little bit. If you're a Bama fan or you're a Bama administrator or a Bama president, Purdue is going to make more money than you. Purdue's going to make more money than Tennessee. You know, Northwestern is going to make more money than Georgia. Think about that. It's ludicrous, you know, but say what you want about the former Big Ten commissioner, Kevin Warren. That was a pretty smart thing to do. You open up the windows, things are going to change. He saw that the winds of change were going around. He designed the television deals to open up these windows, and they're gonna make some money because of it. Meanwhile, Sankey does a 10-year deal, knowing full well that everything's changing. He can't be that. He's not stupid, you know. But that was a dumb deal. Dumb deal. Don't get me started, dude. Because it was just dumb.
Okay.
I mean, someone's got to call him out. I don't care to do it. No one in the media is talking to these dudes like they should, asking questions.
I just wish you had an eye patch on right now doing this.
Should.
Sponsored by...
Let's take a quick break to show some love to the deep pockets that fund this show. For how much longer, we don't know. We'd first like to welcome aboard our newest sponsor this week, Nostalgia Gummies. All your friends are gone. They either quit the sports biz, took a job across the country in a desperate attempt to climb the rungless ladder, or got laid off via Slack message. Now you're stuck in a department full of newbies, all trying to make a good first impression to the old sap in the executive chair. But you remember the old crew, the inside jokes, laughing at a coworker's meltdown over mismanagement, or crying over your disappearing annual bonus. You don't want to make new friends. You want to go back. But since that's not possible, try Nostalgia Gummies, the only supplement that transports your brain to less shittier times, like 2017 when you still had a sparkle in your eye and actual hope in your career. Nostalgia Gummies, because nothing else is working, and they taste better than kissing ass. Dude, stop. Stop with this.
And for a limited time only, they're shaped like credential badges. Nostalgia Gummies.
Oh, that's so good.
No longer credentialed is also bankrolled by our good friends at 25-Hour Energy. For when 24 hours just isn't enough to meet the impossible expectations of clueless leaders who haven't attended a sporting event since Calvin Coolidge was in office. Introducing 25-Hour Energy, the only shot of adrenaline strong enough to survive the dysfunction and delusional enough to make you think you're the problem for taking a lunch break. Just one dose gives you the strength to call out all the bullshit in a meeting you weren't even supposed to speak in. 25-Hour Energy, because taking a day off in sports isn't an option, but developing a caffeine-induced tremor in your left eye apparently is.
Ain't that the truth?
Back to the action.
I'm up to my ears right now.
You know, Barca, we've both seen some dumb stuff in college sports, and also comical things that made us wonder, is this real life? And as we all know, athletics can be as faithful as a slot machine. Well, I'm up to my ears about something I saw this week that takes the cake. In fact, their headline on their website should read, "We just did the dumbest shit. We're even surprised how dumb it is." Central Arkansas of Atlantic Sun fame made an eye-raising hire this week. Their head SID job, which has been open for months and could even be said for a year or more because their associate AD told everyone he was retiring at the end of the 24-25 academic calendar year, finally got around to posting the gig at the end of April, and the Bears found their man this week. If you're standing up, you may want to sit down, or if you're sitting, you may want to stand. In a move that is so 1985, he moved over his women's soccer coach, Jeremy Bishop, to lead the SID office. That's right, the women's soccer coach. Dude has never worked in an SID office in his life. He's been at Central Arkansas as the women's soccer coach for 13 seasons. So now, the poor people in that office now have to carry the weight for this lug and train them on how to do everything a communications professional should do. Press releases, social media, website maintenance, interview requests, credentialing, everything. And be paid half of what their new boss is making. Bishop may be a great guy, but to even entertain taking this job is a slap in the face to the people working in that office, who should be sending their resumes out everywhere, by the way, and frankly, to the people who do it honestly, accurately, and passionately across the sports landscape. This is a travesty to the business and to college sports in general. Bishop should be ashamed of himself. The campus folks who let this happen should be ashamed of themselves, and their AD, Matt Whiting, should wear a scarlet letter on the Conway campus. Let's look at Whiting's background. He has worked in external affairs for most of his career. He led the External Relations Department at Central Arkansas from 2018 to 2024, and for a year there as an assistant AD in 2017. He spent almost 4 years prior to Central Arkansas at Arkansas Monticello as their associate AD for external operations. Part of the job of being head of external affairs and external operations is supervising the communications office. If you're in that job, you should know what they do. You should know how hard they work. And you should know that moving a soccer coach to lead an office of communications professionals is not the right move. Just for 1 second, put yourself in the shoes of the people in that office. I mean, can the soccer coach even write an email with correct punctuation? Does he know what the AP style guide is? Could he tell you the difference in resolutions of photos for the web and print? I could go on and on and on. And those existing staffers are going to have to spend most of their working day teaching this dude the ins and outs of the job. I doubt Whiting will meet his soccer coach on the first day with passwords to their social media accounts. Has Whiting learned anything from his career? Does he block all of that info out because his comms people do such a great job he doesn't have to think about the gig? Also, we just interviewed Mark Cohen, who worked 36 years in the business. He left California and ended up in South Carolina to follow his passion. People who have worked in the business have done that time and time again. So now you're just going to hand that job over to a soccer coach? Does he have the passion that Mark and many others exhibit in their day-to-day work as an SID? Tell you what, we're going to go down to TC Midtown Grill. We're going to have a cold draft on tap, order some apps, maybe top it off with a coffee to catch our breath, and then we're going to ask the bartender to come to your office and take your job. Because you might as well have brought in that person to lead your comms office. He has the same amount of experience as your crony, the soccer coach. Come on, Central Arkansas. You can do better.
Boggs, you don't seem very upset about this at all. I don't know. Maybe this is a two on the Boggs meter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, but it's comedy. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's been open for a year. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I hope people are talking about it in Conway. I'm sure the media are not saying anything to their AD about it.
No, it's hidden in the press release on the front of the website.
Yeah.
You know, there have to be a lot of pissed off people in the SID industry. I was joking. You're pretty hot yourself about this for the last day or two since it came out. I always try to play devil's advocate about all this stuff. You know, gosh, this one's tough, though. This one's very tough. And the only thing I can think of is, well, maybe they tried a couple different hires over the last few months and half year, and the salary wasn't enough, and they couldn't get anybody to, sign on the dotted line. But then I'm sitting there thinking, and we talk about this in culture, in college sports, and we've said it over and over and over again the last few months. When you have athletic departments that aren't nurturing and professionally developing their people from within, why not let the younger staff person cut their teeth on this, especially at a school like Central Arkansas? Invest in that person. Instead, you're sending a signal across to the department that says, what does this say? We don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And to me, it feels like sort of like the good old boy system. You take care of people. Listen, somebody over comms That's not somebody, you just don't put anybody in that position. And it's mind blowing to me that this has happened. You know, if you want to do a favor for an extremely successful coach, put him in the fundraising position, put him somewhere else. And I know there isn't budget everywhere, but let's make the right hires, people. And if I'm sitting there and I'm an entire department, as word spreads and rumbles after this hire, and it will throughout a department, it will spread. I can't attest to what the culture's like at that place, but I can tell you, it would take a significant hit on this. And this isn't an overnight thing. You know, to me, it's a red flag. You start thinking, you know, I don't want to tell anybody what to do with their job, but I'm sitting there and I'm thinking like, maybe I need to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Let's check in with this dude in a month. Because if you look on the website on the sports he's going to be doing, football, men's basketball, baseball, men's and women's golf.
Jesus.
Listen, man, he's going to want to be a women's soccer coach after he gets through the next 12 months, 10 months, because he's going to be drowning. When November comes around and he's doing a football game and has to rush over to do basketball, and then, you know, they have volleyball too, so I'm sure he's going to have something to do with that. And then in the spring when he's got baseball playing in February and basketball's going on in February, and I mean, I hope he doesn't have a family because he's not going to see him.
You know us. Like, we love our coaches. We love coaches, especially at these smaller schools that are doing their grind. But let's be real. Just like you said, the guy at the bar, Boggsy, no way in hell you were ever being hired to be women's soccer head coach at Central Arkansas.
No.
So why in the hell is the reverse happening?
Yeah, I don't know.
Why?
Again, it's also another shot at the business. It's just disrespectful. It's like people just don't know what they do. And part of that's on the people who work in comms and college sports. We don't do a good enough job, you know, tooting our horn about the things that we do and the impact that we make. And so you have a women's soccer coach come over, is going to be the head of the whole department. So it's partly kind of on our business that we kind of let that stuff happen. You know, that anybody off the street can come and do the job, which basically is what this AD is saying. And that's another kick in the pants to the people who are actually in that office are going to have to train this dude for everything.
And who are these younger staffers going to learn from? Where's the professional development?
There's none.
We talk about this time and time again. Who are they going to learn from? They're going to be training their boss.
Yep.
To me, they better be well compensated for that.
Well, we know what that answer is. It's going to be a no.
Somebody better pick up the tab on that one because, you know, you've already got several strikes against you. You have to train your boss. You're not going to get developed professionally. Just the whole thing's a joke.
Yeah.
And just because you're at Central Arkansas doesn't mean people don't care.
Yeah.
Mind-blowing move once again by the AD. Maybe there's something else to it, but I can't. You know, this is not how you reward a coach for a long tenure.
Yeah,
for their success and move up an assistant. This is not the map on how to do it. But, you know, when I saw this article on their website, I started thinking, it was like, I shouldn't believe this, but
yeah. I mean, it's just
sports.
It's ridiculous. It's as faithful as a slot machine. You just don't know. Godspeed to the people at Central Arkansas. We thinking about you. It'd be kind of fun to check in with you in like October and see what this guy's like. If he's just like in a fetal position in his office because he doesn't know what to do and it's got a million things coming out of his ears, you know. So
does it even matter if they know what to do? They can just delegate it down. I don't understand. And you had this long to find the right person. You had knowing a guy was going to retire for a year after being there for a long time. And maybe just everybody in the A-Sun needs to take your advice and just walk out on a football Saturday.
Let's leave this guy to do Stat Crew or whatever their genius, whatever they're doing now. And like
this person's gonna be writing. You know, let's think about what the head SID writes,
especially at Central Arkansas.
Let's think about some of these.
There's no Associated Press. There's nobody writing. They're not a top 25 team. There's nobody writing your recap for you. So this guy's going to be writing a recap for football. It's like that's what I'm talking about, writing and punctuation and all of that stuff. Like when you're a coach, it doesn't matter. You're just sending stuff. No one's looking at your punctuation. I mean, it should be somewhat correct, but no one's going to say, hey, you missed a comma here, or you should have a period there, or you're going to send something to the local media, and they're going to be like, what is this? Is there a 7-year-old writing this press release?
And how much has the business changed over the last 20 years and evolved? This isn't like the 80s or 90s, like you said. Maybe the soccer coach had some experience once upon a moon 20, 30 years ago in a prior stint and maybe did a couple of these things. It's not the same anymore. Newsflash.
No.
It's changed. And when you have ADs and you have external people now, and it's the same cliche, like the same stereotypical conversations, like we need to tell our story. And this group is so vital. Think about how many times you heard that when we worked together.
Yep.
You guys need to be pushing this story, and you guys need to be, reaching more media and helping reach more fundraisers with the stories that you tell and these relationships that you build. And then you pull off this, like it doesn't go together.
No.
It does not go together. And you're sending the wrong message. You're saying you want to be great at something, and then you do this.
Yeah.
Because it happens in every single one of these comms departments. We've been in those meetings over and over and over again, and the pressure to tell the story.
Yeah.
Well, we're telling you what the story is right now. This is bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, to me,
Headline.
Central Arkansas, it just screams having a young leader. You know, it's a place where you're not going to make a lot of money.
Perfect.
You just cut your teeth. You're going to be doing a lot of things. Let's just go get a young leader. You know, you're going to take some lumps. You're going to take some lumps probably for the first 6 months, but they're going to learn. To me, Central Arkansas would be a perfect place for you to learn how to be a good professional, communications professional, and instead you give it to a 50-year-old washed-up soccer coach. It just doesn't make any sense. I just don't get it. He's not really washed up. He has a great record. If you look at it, I mean, like, I don't know, man. Does he think he's going to be doing less work right now? Or does he have a passion for Instagram? Or does he have a rockin' TikTok? Or, I mean, I don't know.
A coach's perspective on what the job should be and how it should be done in a comms department doesn't always align with the expertise of what a comms professional knows what to do.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine the stuff he's going to be telling these guys? I think you should probably, you really need to be on call on Sundays to post, what Sally Joe did in AAU soccer this past weekend. I could see that.
We need to have all of our SIDs covering women's soccer this year.
That's right. Yeah, we don't have enough. It's an all hands on deck thing at Central Arkansas.
I've said this for years. We haven't had much coverage on women's soccer. The one SID wasn't enough.
Yeah,
we're going full.
We need everybody.
Going full
there.
staffing.
Yep, it's an all hands on deck.
Time to wrap it up.
And that's another edition of No Longer Credentialed. Thanks to all of you listening, and if you like it, tell a friend and give it a 5-star rating on your podcast app of choice. Don't forget to check us out on social media at NLC Pod on X, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, keep grinding. I don't know if I had read all the way down in that commercial.
That
is the best.
You know,
dude.
sometimes I told you that before.
That is the best. Like,
sometimes it needs to be like SNL, where Bill Hader and John Mulaney would write, and Bill Hader would do Stefan on the news, and John Mulaney would switch out some of the cue cards, and so Hader would be reading them for the first time on the actual live run, and he would just start cracking up, like not being able to read lines.
That was me on that one, because that was pretty good.